Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take those essential sources, the articles, transcripts, the key research, and we really distill what's most valuable, what you can actually use. We know you want deep knowledge, but, well, your time matters too.
And today we're definitely diving deep into something that isn't always comfortable to look at. We're talking about those deeply rooted emotional patterns, the mechanics of why we as humans often cling to unhappiness.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Our sources today focus exclusively on this concept called the pain body. It's essentially the accumulated emotional weight, the old pain we carry, often without even, realizing its full impact.
It sounds a bit radical, actually. The material suggests we might, on some level, enjoy our misery. Or at least that some part of us does. This really matters because it gets to the heart of everyday drama, why we react so destructively sometimes, and why relationships can just completely derail.
That's right. And to sort of set the stage, the sources point to a pretty challenging idea about our usual state of mind. For a lot of people, maybe 80 or even 90% of their thinking isn't really productive in a, let's say, constructive way.
80 to 90%, wow.
Yeah, it's described as often self-serving, focused on creating problems, going in circles rather than, solving things or just being present.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. So this huge amount of, unconscious thought, that's the opening, the crack, where these difficult emotional cycles creep in and grab hold.
Exactly. And the immediate problem kicks in when a really strong emotion hooks up with that constant problem-making thought string.
Right.
When you're caught in that loop, intense emotion plus obsessive thought, it's like being stuck in a psychological grip you just can't seem to break free from.
Yeah, we've all been there, haven't we? Intense anger or that deep resentment that just sits there, maybe chronic anxiety, it's exhausting. So here's the question this material really pushes us to ask ourselves, and it's central today. Have you ever been totally gripped by anger? Or just deep unhappiness, and even though your rational mind knew it felt awful, some deeper, compulsive part felt like it almost loved holding on to that grievance. Why is it just so incredibly hard sometimes to be present and let that feeling go?
That very resistance, that feeling of not wanting to let go even when it hurts. That's the absolute signature of this thing we need to look at. That inability to just drop the thought-emotion combo.
Yeah.
That's our starting point for understanding the pain body.
Okay, so let's get into defining it properly. This isn't just feeling down sometimes, is it?
Fine.
The pain body, according to the sources, it's an accumulation, old, painful, trapped, negative emotion. It lives inside a person.
Yes, it's described as an energy field, really, one that builds up over time. Often its roots go way back to painful stuff in childhood. Some sources even suggest links to, past lifetimes, depending on the framework.
An energy field. That's interesting.
And what's key is understanding it as stored energy. It's not always switched on. For many people, it can lie dormant. You hardly feel it's just there.
In the background.
Right. But in others, actually in most people, to some degree, this buildup can be, as the source puts it, very, very heavy. It acts like this dense emotional mass sitting within the psyche, and even felt in the physical body sometimes.
That idea of a dense field of old trauma, it's a bit abstract. So to make it more concrete, the material offers this really helpful analogy.
It does. It suggests looking at the pain body almost like it's a separate little thing inside you, like a little monster or gremlin.
A gremlin, okay.
Yeah, the point is it's not you, it's something in you. And it has a mission when it wakes up from being dormant.
Which is?
It wakes up periodically, specifically to feed on more drama and more pain. That's its fuel.
That really helps disidentify from it, seeing it as this separate, hungry thing. It explains why we sometimes act totally against our own well-being.
Exactly. And the source even gives a really vivid cultural example. It compares the pain body to Gollum from The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, wow. Gollum.
Yeah, think about it. Gollum is basically pain personified, right? Continuous, deep, emotional suffering and obsession. Always miserable, always clinging to his precious, his grievance. That internal battle he has, Smeagol, the original self, versus Gollum, the pain entity that's like seeing our own flicker of consciousness fighting the pain body's grip. His suffering became his identity.
That makes the power of this entity really clear. But I'm still trying to connect the dots here. We hear a lot about the ego, the sense of self, the voice in the head. Is the pain body just another name for the ego, or maybe just a fancy term for anxiety?
That's a really critical distinction the sources emphasize. Understanding how they relate is absolutely key to getting free. The ego is more like the structure.
Okay.
It's the mental framework, the story of me that's built out of thoughts and beliefs. The pain body, though, is pure emotional energy. It's the trapped fuel, old negative fuel.
So the ego is the car, and the pain body is the dirty fuel.
Kind of, yeah. The ego loves this fuel because it uses the negative energy of the pain body to define itself more strongly. That whole narrative of poor me or I was treated so unfairly allows the ego to grab that stored emotional charge and weave it into its story. It makes the ego feel more solid, more defined, even if it's through suffering.
So the pain body is the past, trapped as energy.
Right. And the ego is the present thought process that constantly dips back into that past energy to keep its story going.
Which leads straight into that vicious cycle you mentioned, where emotions get amplified. So when the pain body gets active, that stored negative feeling, it sparks a story in the mind, like a grievance narrative.
Precisely. A story of being wronged or judging someone else or feeling like a victim. And then the story itself, the constant mental rehashing, the ruminating, thinking about how right you are and how wrong they were, that feeds energy right back into the emotion.
Okay, I see it. You get angry about something small, then you spend the next hour mentally arguing the case in your head, justifying it.
And you end up feeling 10 times angrier than when it started. It's a self-feeding loop. And when someone is totally in the grip of that, the source says they don't want to let go.
Back to that question of why we seem to love it.
It's not the true self, the awareness, that loves it. It's the ego. The ego loves the grip of negativity because the person mistakenly thinks that suffering ego is them. It feels familiar, almost comfortable in its awfulness.
Okay, the internal mechanism is clearer now, but relationships. That seems like the prime stage for this drama.
Absolutely. The source paints this picture, this anecdote that feels incredibly familiar for so many couples. Two people fall madly in love, everything's wonderful, rose-tinted glasses.
The honeymoon phase.
Exactly. Then they move in together or get married, make some formal commitment, and then maybe 6 months, maybe a year later, bam, one partner suddenly goes through what the source calls a weird transformation.
Oh.
Suddenly they're just not the same person anymore. The kind, loving partner becomes sharp, aggressive, maybe deeply angry, hypercritical, like a little monster just appeared.
And the other person is just standing there thinking, who is this?
Right. Who did I commit to? The source is very clear. This is usually the first real encounter with the partner's pain body. Fully activated, the intimacy, the closeness of a committed relationship. It creates the perfect friction for this dormant entity to wake up.
And how does it operate then in the relationship? It needs to feed, right?
Yes, and its food source in relationships is the negative reaction from the other person. The partner's fear, their defensiveness, their counterattack of anger, that's pure energy for the pain body.
It deliberately pokes them.
It's incredibly skillful in its own unconscious way. It knows exactly which buttons to push. It will say just the right thing that is hurtful, often something deeply personal, designed to hit the partner's insecurities square on.
Oh.
The pain body in person A is actively trying to trigger and awaken the pain body in person B. That's how you get that intense relationship drama.
And the outcome is just devastating. People who are totally in love can, in moments, become like mortal enemies, genuinely hating each other for hours, sometimes days.
Because they're completely gripped by their respective pain bodies. They're not relating as people anymore. It's pain body versus pain body.
And what happens? They can't stay like that forever.
No. Eventually, the energy subsides, and they both sort of wake up again. But, and this is crucial, the source points out, they wake up not into full present awareness, but just back into normal unconsciousness.
Okay, hang on. What does normal unconsciousness mean in this context? Is that just everyday life?
Pretty much. It's the default state for many people when they're identified with their thoughts. But the emotional charge isn't at peak intensity. It might look like low-level background anxiety, constant worrying, being easily distracted, maybe always impatient, thinking about the future or stuck in the past, not present.
So when the couple makes up after a big fight.
They're back in that normal unconscious state.
Yeah.
They smooth things over, might apologize, but often they can't even clearly remember what the fight was really about, because the story was just a delivery system for the pain body's energy release. They step back into that low-grade fog until the next trigger.
And the really dangerous sign, according to the source, is when these blow-ups start happening more often. The gaps between them get shorter.
Exactly. That signals the beginning of the end, if they don't gain awareness. Without recognizing the pain body for what it is, the relationship essentially becomes built around this recurring drama contract.
And this can get much worse, right? Especially if substances are involved.
Yes, the sources highlight alcohol specifically. Alcohol significantly lowers whatever little consciousness, whatever sliver of presence a person might normally have.
It removes the filter.
Completely. And when that shield of awareness drops, it gives the pain body an incredible opportunity to play itself out fully without restraint.
Which is when you can see extreme emotional or even physical violence, like in spousal abuse cases.
Tragically, yes.
Yeah.
And the source makes a really important point here. The next day, when the person is sober again, their awareness slowly returning, they might apologize with absolute sincerity. I'll never do it again, I promise.
And they might mean it in that moment.
They often do. The person, separate from the pain body, feels genuine remorse. But the pattern repeats because the core issue isn't resolved. The trigger happens, or the alcohol is consumed, consciousness vanishes, and the pain body automatically hijacks the system again. The apology doesn't fix the underlying lack of awareness that allows the takeover.
Okay, so relationships are a major feeding ground. But what about people who live alone or spend a lot of time by themselves? Does the pain body just go dormant then?
Not necessarily. The sources say there are two main ways it renews itself: through others' reactions in relationships and through internal thought processes if you're alone.
So it can feed on your own thoughts.
Absolutely. If there's no one around to provoke, the pain body initiates what the source calls an internal invasion. That stored negative emotional energy rises up and essentially floods the person's mind stream.
So the emotion starts directing the thoughts.
Yes, the pain body begins thinking through the mind. This generates intensely negative, painful, often circular thoughts about how bad your life is, how worthless you are, maybe catastrophizing about the future.
The mind gets invaded by the emotion, as the source puts it. Every thought then echoes that miserable energy, feeding it more, confirming the sad story.
It's a totally closed loop of self-generated suffering, which leads straight to this really challenging concept, the addiction to unhappiness.
Addiction to feeling bad.
When this internal invasion is happening, remember, the ego identifies with it. So on some unconscious level, the person secretly enjoys the misery, or rather the egoic entity does. They become psychologically, even physiologically, hooked on being unhappy.
Wow.
And this is why sometimes when people are deep in that state, they might resist help from friends or family. They push it away because in that moment, they're identified with the pain body. And it does not want to be free. It wants its misery fix.
Resisting help because the entity wants to keep feeding. That's a really stark idea. It reframes resistance not just as stubbornness, but as the entity defending itself.
Precisely. And this isn't just about major depressive episodes. It happens in small ways constantly. The source urges vigilance about any overreaction in daily life.
Like getting furious over minor things.
Exactly. That disproportionate anger when someone cuts you off in traffic, or intense irritation over a critical email, or getting really upset about something trivial someone said or didn't say. That's often the pain body grabbing a quick snack of negative energy.
So reactivity itself is a sign?
A direct sign of unconsciousness, yes. It immediately puts you at the mercy of whatever happens to going on around you. If you find yourself constantly looking for things to complain about, becoming a walking grievance, as the source calls it.
You're just feeding the beast.
Constantly. Whether the trigger is big or small, the pain body isn't interested in solving the problem. It just wants to reinforce the feeling of being upset.
Okay, this thing is powerful. It feeds itself. But it needs something to hold on to, right? An anchor. The source talks about victimhood being a major one.
A huge one. The material suggests many people have a massive psychological and emotional investment in their identity as a victim. This can be deeply personal.
Like defining yourself by childhood wounds or bad experiences.
Right. Or it can be collective, deriving your core identity from belonging to a group that has genuinely suffered historical discrimination or oppression. The source isn't denying the reality of past suffering. It's pointing to the mechanism of identifying with it as your primary self.
And that identification is seductive, isn't it?
Very seductive to the ego. It provides a clear story of me, often a sense of moral righteousness, maybe a strong sense of belonging within the group that shares the grievance.
But there's a trap.
A big one. The source calls it a mental prison. When your primary narrative is built on victimhood, you walk right into it. That sense of self feels intensely real. It's backed by painful memories, reinforced by the group maybe, but the source insists it's ultimately fictitious because your true nature, your consciousness, is beyond that story of suffering. It's a prison constructed from thoughts and cemented by emotion.
So the crucial step again is disidentification, remembering that whatever happened, however real the pain was or is, it's not who you are fundamentally.
Exactly. The emotional scars, the pain body's energy, yes, you feel that. But the I that is aware of the feeling, the source says, that's the light of consciousness. It's not the emotion itself, not the thought story. You are infinitely more vast than your suffering narrative.
And the ego uses this victim identity not just for self-pity, but also to create enemies.
Yes, this is where it gets really divisive, especially with collective identities. It often forces the person or group into making other groups the designated enemy.
Why does the ego love enemies?
Because conflict strengthens it. Creating a conceptual them versus us simplifies the world, justifies negativity, and makes the ego feel stronger, more defined, even if that definition is based on opposition and hatred. You stop seeing individuals in the other group. You just see the enemy label.
And if you want a live demonstration of this, just go online.
Look no further. The internet is cited directly as a wonderful reflection of the unconscious human mind, just teeming with people locked in grievances, complaining, judging, criticizing, overflowing with self-righteousness, often hidden behind anonymity.
It's like a global pain body feeding frenzy sometimes.
It really is. It's an easy, low-friction way for the ego to vent and for the pain body to demand reactions. The sources suggest a huge percentage of online conflict is just this unconscious mechanism playing out a perfect showcase of how easily we fall into that victim identity trap, driven by the pain body's hunger for energy.
Okay, this all sounds pretty bleak. A powerful entity feeding on pain, trapping us in victimhood. Is there a way out?
Yes, and here's where the source material takes a really hopeful, even empowering turn. The challenge, the obstacle of the pain body itself. That's actually described as the portal to the awakening.
The obstacle is the way.
Precisely. It's a fascinating twist. People with really heavy pain bodies, those who've suffered immensely, often develop a stronger drive to awaken spiritually. Why? Because they simply can't stand it anymore.
The pain becomes unbearable.
Exactly. The constant escalating suffering creates this intense internal pressure. It forces them to look for an escape hatch that goes beyond the mind's usual tricks and narratives. The pain itself becomes the fuel for transformation, the catalyst.
So how do we actually start transforming it? What's the practice?
The core practice is disidentification. Simple to say, but revolutionary in practice. When the pain body arises, that familiar wave of anger, fear, sadness, the main goal isn't to fight it or suppress it. It's to be aware of it and consciously stop identifying with it.
Just notice it without becoming it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to realize in that moment that you are the awareness observing the emotion, and that awareness, that simple presence, is infinitely stronger than the emotion itself.
Awareness is stronger than the pain body.
Infinitely. Consciousness grows just by the act of observing without judgment. When you shine the light of your attention on the pain body, it starts to shrink. That entity, that gremlin, it hates being seen. But you, the awareness, you are the light.
Okay, let's make this practical. For couples stuck in that destructive drama cycle, what can they actually do?
The source offers a very proactive step. Make an agreement. When you're both relatively calm and conscious, agree to gently point out the pain body in each other when it starts to surface.
Like a code word.
Yeah, maybe a specific word or a subtle signal you both agree on beforehand. But, and this is absolutely vital, the intervention has to happen early.
Why early?
Because rational argument is completely useless once the pain body is fully activated. Once that entity takes over, you're not talking to your partner anymore, you're talking to the pain body itself.
And it will just defend itself.
Instantly. It'll lash out. How dare you say it's my pain body? Look at yours. You're the one with the problem. So you have to catch it at the very first flicker, the slight shift in tone, the beginning of an overreaction.
Makes sense. Now, what about for an individual dealing with this alone? How do you practice being the observer then?
When you're alone, the key is to notice the emotion arising. The fear, the anger, the irritation, whatever it is. But make a conscious choice not to follow it into your mind. Don't let it hijack your thoughts to build its usual story.
So feel the feeling, but don't spin the narrative.
Exactly. Be the observing presence, except the emotion is there, it's a physical sensation, it's part of this present moment, and just stay alert. Don't deny it or push it away, saying, I shouldn't feel this.
Just watch it.
Watch the energy, like watching clouds pass. And withholding the mental food means when that familiar thought pops up, they always disrespect me. You see the thought, you acknowledge it, but you don't jump onto the train of the next 50 thoughts about all the times they disrespected you and how unfair it is. You just let the thought float by without engaging.
And if you do this consistently, if you stop feeding it with thoughts, what happens to that trapped energy? Does it just disappear?
It doesn't get destroyed or repressed, which is important. This is where the source talks about a kind of inner alchemy.
Alchemy, like turning lead into gold.
Exactly, but internally. The pain body is that trapped, low-vibration energy, the base metal, the lead. When you consistently shine the light of non-judgmental awareness on it, when you observe it without feeding it thoughts, that dense energy is fundamentally transmuted. It's transformed into higher frequency energy, into consciousness itself, into light.
So the pain body becomes the fuel for consciousness.
That's the profound insight. This is described as the real meaning behind that ancient alchemical quest. The base metal wasn't literal lead, it was the dense, suffering energy of the unconscious pain body. It's heavy, it's painful, but the source suggests it's actually a necessary part of the human journey because it provides the intense friction needed to spark that awakening, to force us into presence.
Wow. So the very thing causing all the drama and misery is also the raw material for our deepest growth. It pushes us towards presence.
If we really connect all this back to the bigger picture, what the sources are saying is that true freedom isn't about changing the world outside necessarily, but changing our inner state. It starts in that simple moment of awareness when you interrupt the compulsive thinking and just become present.
And there's this incredible sense of freedom described when, even if you're in a difficult situation, maybe someone is shouting at you or things are unpleasant, but inside you, there's just space. There's nobody inside you to receive the negativity because you're not reacting from the pain body, you're just present.
You're simply observing the storm without being swept away by it.
Because you are the awareness, the consciousness, the vast space in which the pain, the emotion, the pain body arises, you're fundamentally much larger, much more stable than that temporary storm.
Which leads us to a final question, really, for you to take with you. The next time you feel that familiar pull, that urge towards drama, that hook of grievance, maybe that wave of self-pity, can you just pause? Just for 1 second. Can you observe that emotional energy, that inner gremlin, without immediately identifying with the story it wants you to believe?
That's the practice right there. If you enjoyed today's topic, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Tell us what resonated. Maybe it was the relationship dynamics or that idea of the victimhood prison, or perhaps the concept of the pain body as alchemical fuel for growth. Let us know.
And definitely subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss our next deep dive into these kinds of essential ideas.
Stay present, stay well. We'll see you next time.